Warning, the following video is rated BH. Any fanboy at risk of BH should exit the video and seek medical attention immediately. Viewer discretion is advised. Your feature presentation will begin in 3, 2, 1, meow. Hey, this is Zero at ReviewZoneHD, and I'm bringing you a review for Grand Theft Auto 5 for the PlayStation 3. This year I've kind of made it easy on myself. I dodged quite a few bad games, and I've spent most of my time this year playing and reviewing some of the best games this console generation has seen. And GTA is yet another knockout, drop-dead, gorgeous-looking game that ran without a hitch, and most importantly was fun to play. One of my subscribers said it best, GTA 5 is the ultimate game which offers a little bit of everything. But I did have a few problems, a few nitpicks with this game that may surprise a few of you. But let's go ahead and get to the positive stuff first, and I'll cut straight to the chase and agree with pretty much every single review that's been printed for this game. It's definitely a must-own day one purchase, hands down, without a doubt, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Unless you have a moral objection to the content that's found in the game, there's really no reason why you shouldn't try to pick this game up. It has the best looking open world that I've seen in any game to date. From the mountains to the beaches, there were times that I just sat there and marveled in awe at how beautiful the game is. It's one of the only titles that I've ever played where I could just sit there and enjoy staring at the environment for extended periods of time. Flying planes over the city or sailing around on a boat can be a very peaceful, therapeutic experience. You can have a really good time just exploring the game world because the developers obviously took no shortcuts when it came to creating a very lifelike and also very believable city. And it's a lot of little things that add up to make it such an enjoyable experience, such as dust particles that flutter around the air, the different graffiti or litter that's found strewn across the city, the wild animals that just randomly grace you with their presence. There's just so much to see and do in this game. The ambient noise that fills any area is just astonishing. If you're in the city, you may hear a police siren or a motorcycle so far off in the distance that you can't even see it, but you can hear it. The draw distance and how far your character can look across the game world is just mind-boggling. With a sniper rifle on top of a skyscraper, I was able to snipe cars almost as far as the scope would allow me to view. It's also worth pointing out that I didn't run into any technical issues while playing. So not only did they build this gigantic world to play in, but they polished it to the point that I couldn't find anything to complain about. That just does not happen with games of this size. And the fact that Rockstar was able to build this type of incredible game for us to enjoy right at the end of the current generation of consoles not only makes me wonder what everybody else has been doing wrong this whole time, but it's hard to effectively give the amount of praise that it deserves. But then again, $1 billion of sales in its first few days of release sort of speaks for itself. Now, briefly mentioning some of the other highlights that I thoroughly enjoyed were the ragdoll physics that make each death not only unique, but also sometimes downright hilarious. The police chases didn't drag on forever, and the police in general didn't hound me for every little crime or mistake that I may have made or triggered, such as running over a few people walking along the street or firing off a few rounds from a weapon. I also didn't realize this game had a fully functional stock market that allows you to buy and share stock off of your phone until my 4th day of playing, and that just blew my mind when I found that. However, and this is where the review takes a turn and gets a lot more interesting, I'm not on the same page with everybody that says this game is perfect. I think it's far from that. For starters, I wasn't overly impressed with the soundtrack. I enjoyed the West Coast Classic rap station. I was able to wade through all the other crap that filled the other stations to find a couple more songs that I was mildly fond of, but I found myself having to either change the station frequently as soon as I got in the car, or I just turned the radio off altogether a good bit of the time. There were several radio stations that I can't even understand why they were in the game. The news broadcasts were occasionally amusing, but most of the time I felt like I was flipping through commercial-filled radio stations, similar to what I do in real life in the car. I wouldn't consider my own taste in music as being picky, but I've heard much better soundtracks from the previous GTA games and also the more recent Saints Row titles. My biggest gripe, however, with this title is going to be with the story. I've read a couple reviews in which the reviewers were just praising how great the story was. I enjoyed playing as all three characters. They were unique, and it was fun watching them interact with each other, and there were some entertaining side stories and individual missions that I found to be interesting, but the story as a whole felt like a bunch of fragmented, broken pieces that didn't quite fit together. In other words, I felt the story was a mess, parts of it felt forced together, and other parts were just far too convenient. There were some cutscenes that the characters didn't react in a manner that made any sense at all, and I'm not talking about Trevor that sounds and acts like Johnny Knoxville. I'm referring to situations that they were put in which their emotions didn't quite pan out. Around 15 hours in, I felt like I was just running through the motions of the missions, and at that point I didn't really care about the story because there was no real core to it. I didn't feel like I was working towards anything or there was any sense of purpose to it outside of just obtaining more money. When I was closing in on the final missions, the story did start to slowly pull itself back together, and there were moments that I finally started to care about the situation, but by that point it was a little too late for me to really overlook just how long it took for the story to get to that point. I read the Escapist review just a few minutes ago before writing my own review. I read all of the comments from people attacking him for his opinion. I'm actually going to have to agree with every single thing that he wrote in his review. The characters in this game have their moments in which they're likable, but their intentions go far beyond just making a little bit of money. All three have a certain self-destructive and arrogant attitude toward every situation that it can make it sometimes difficult to fully agree with what's taking place. I was watching a video by Angry Joe in which he stated a certain situation in this game made him feel uncomfortable while playing through it, and I'm sure there have been many more concerns or complaints similar to that by other reviewers and players alike. There were parts of this game that may have stepped over the boundary for what should be included in a video game. Some of it seemed a bit unnecessary, but I'm sure it was done intentionally to push the envelope as far as they possibly could while gaining some extra media and news attention in the process. I personally don't focus on that stuff while playing or even doing my reviews. Nothing I've seen in a video game to date has made me feel uncomfortable, but this is definitely not a game that I would recommend for the younger audience, and I had to be extra careful with what I was doing on the game when my 4-year-old would walk around the room. Nudity, drug use, graphic violence, very raw dialogue throughout just about every cutscene. Pretty much any type of bad influence you can think of is going to be found in this game, and while it did give a very real and gritty look at the characters, there were some situations that felt as if it was just added for the shock value, which cheapened the overall experience of trying to enjoy the story. So there you go, that's my review, that's my opinion. It's a great game. I had a few problems with it. If you're not one of the gazillion people that already own this game, I definitely recommend going and picking it up. This is Zero at ReviewZoneHD, and as always, thanks for stopping by.
Who farted? Come on, that's disgusting.